Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Denise. Boy, I wasn't even almost didn't make it today, guys. I got to tell you. I was up way too late last night with my son on the phone and I overslept and I looked at my phone. I grabbed my phone and I thought it said 8 o'clock, but it said 10 o'clock. And it's like I had to rush real quick. I still have marks on my face, even from my CPAP. I took my CPAP off and threw a little bit of makeup on real quick, threw my hair back into a ponytail. And I'm glad I took a second look at the clock because I almost slept in all the way. Oh, how's everybody doing this morning? It's so nice to see you, Denise. Look at this beautiful morning we have here in Iowa today. I don't know what has happened, but yesterday and the day before, it was like we lived on the ice planet of Hoth. And today it is just beautiful out. Oh, goodness, there is a cat in my yard. Wow. Oh, he's a boy. I have a big furry tomcat just strolling through my yard. He looks like he's been in a fight or two. And he's coming around because he's got a mama kitty in there. Hello, good morning, Tim. Well, thank you, Denise. Thank you. This is like 2 minutes worth of effort, if even that, while I was running around. But today's beautiful. All of the snow has melted, except for a couple places maybe where it was piled a little bit deep from shoveling. Everything has now turned into its proper mud pit. And there's just a slight breeze today, but yesterday and the day before, the wind and everything was just horrid. But today I'll be able to go out and not worry about slipping and falling today when I take care of my animals this morning. So let's get right into it because I know you guys are not here to listen to me yammer on about the weather. We want to see what kind of tea we're going to have today. So yesterday we had a very interesting ginger tea for day 13. And that wasn't too bad once we added a little bit of honey to it. So let's put day 13 back. I've got my calendar right here for our 24 days of tea. I don't even know what story we're going to have today. You know, everything is impromptu, so I never really put any thought into it. But sometimes I'll get an idea of what direction I want to go in. But today I don't. So today we're on day 14. Let's see if I can move this right here. You know what, guys? The whole top row has been completely done except for 14. So we're going to grab that one. Can't believe we're halfway done already. I can't believe I've had the, what's the word I'm looking for? Discipline. I've had the discipline now to come back with you 14 days in a row. Good morning, Yossi. How are you? How are you, my friend? All right, guys, day number 14. Let's open this one up. See what we've got for our tea today. I'm ready for some nice warm tea. Oh my God, how cute. You guys ready? That was a genuine response. Oh, you ready? Look at that tea. Look at the little snowflake in it. Oh my gosh. Isn't that an adorable little tea? Are those little chocolate chips, like white chocolate chips? What are those? What is it? Okay, let me get my glasses on because I have no idea what flavor this is. All I know is when I pulled it out, I saw the little snowflake and got exceptionally happy. I'm telling you, it doesn't take anything to amuse me. I am so easy to please. It's not funny. Oh, now I see more now that I've got my glasses on. So, is that peppermint? I don't know. Let's see. I'm going to read it in a second, but look at, can you see that there's little red, whatever this is right here has little red edges on it. Oh, I don't know what it is. Okay, let's turn it over and read what it is. Candy Cane Crush. Okay, guys, I need this morning. Candy Cane Crush. Let's read the back of our box here to see what the ingredients are for Candy Cane Crush, and then we will get our water warmed up. Now keep in mind they're not in order on the back of my box, so I have to search it out. Found it right here. Here we go, guys. Candy Cane Crush. It has as follows: black tea, white chocolate, peppermint candy, snowflake candies, gum arabic, cellulose gum, titanium dioxide, which is for the color, confectioner's glaze, carrageenan, soy lecithin. I don't like all these things afterwards, all these things that sound, Oh, I was reading the name. Oh, well. Cane sugar, peppermint, and natural flavoring, and it contains milk and soy. This one has a lot of stuff. 200 degrees, and we're going to steep it 3 to 5 minutes. Oh, do I have somebody with my wrench needs to take care of that. I don't know why they love tea so much. Don't know why you love tea so much, but you're not welcome here, whoever you are. So we're going to put it at 200 degrees. We're going to press start, and we're going to warm up our water. Let's see. Hopefully, I have a mod that can take care of that. If somebody has that, let me know. That is a beautiful tea. Let's smell it. Very popular ever since you know what it is? Somebody found out that one of our teas had pineapple in it, and now all of the sites are hitting us up. They think we're pretty awesome. So if everybody will just ignore who's in there, and if you have a wrench, go ahead and delete them. Let's take a smell of our tea. Thank you, Denise. Oh, that smells so good. Oh, that smells so nice. I'm telling you, those little, I don't know what it is, but when you open up the little containers and they've got like the little stars, we've had stars, Christmas trees, and now snowflakes. I love that little snowflake. Oh my goodness. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to bring our infuser over. We will add our blend to our infuser while our tea water is heating up. I'm going to bring this down. We're going to take about half of our tea blend here and go ahead and pop it. Oh, look at all the little snowflakes. And, oh, there's a lot of snowflakes in this blend. My goodness. Here we go. That's about half. Oh, that's so pretty. And it smells so good. Oh, my goodness. I'm thinking I must have just popped in at least 10 little snowflakes in there. Isn't that nice? I'm going to go ahead and set this aside while we're waiting for our water to heat up the rest of the way. I'm still working on my wrap that I've been crocheting. Thank you, Denise. I appreciate that. But I don't think I'm going to have enough yarn. I'm going to have to go buy at least another skein of yarn in order to get my wrap done. If I were my high school weight, it might have gone around by now and been the perfect size, but this mama requires a few more rows of girthiness for her the wrap that I'm crocheting for myself. So I won't have it ready for this week. But let's see. Let's find our advent calendar. I'm so tired. I don't even know what I'm doing this morning. I had such a wonderful time with my son on the phone last night. There's this program he has, and it's almost like, do you remember doing those little games when you were a kid where it was, oh God, now I can't even think of what it is because I'm so tired. Mad Libs. Do you remember Mad Libs, where you would have a story and it would have blanks, and then you would ask somebody to give you a specific word, a color or a name of somebody or an adjective or whatever, and then you would fill it in, and then you would read the story, and sometimes it would be a lot of fun, and sometimes it absolutely made no sense at all. He's got this program on his computer, and it takes information that has been saved from historical internet archives. So it's not live internet that you can go like right now on the web and find something that's up to date. It takes all this old stuff, and you could say, okay, tell me a story about a tree, a possum, and Forrest Gump, and it tells you this whole new story. It just interweaves this whole new story. And so last night we were having so much fun just throwing randomness around. One of them is I said, let's tell a story about a man that was walking along the sidewalk outside of a honky tonk, and there was a piece of gum on the ground, and a pretty girl stepped in the piece of gum, and what happened? That's all you had to do. Bubble gum on the sidewalk outside of a honky tonk. girl steps in it. Those were basically the three things. Mama Bear. And it told a whole story. It told this whole story about how, she stepped in the bubble gum and now his heart is, is stuck to her like a piece of bubble gum. And it just told this whole story. And then it was like, okay, make it a song. And then it turned it into a song. And it said, make it a limerick. And it turned it into this funny limerick. Oh, we had so much fun. There was one that we did. There's two that we did that I've actually had him send me. And I'm going to make a video out of them on YouTube because they're such funny mashups. Just such random things. It's so funny. All right, since I was talking about that, our water warmed up. So let's bring our camera back down. And let's see if we can get the snowflakes to dance. Now, I don't think the snowflakes will be here very long. But when I initially pour the water, I bet you we're going to get just a little bit of a snowflake dance. Here we go. And I'm not going to go super high with the, and a gurgle. You know what? The snowflakes pretty much stayed on the bottom, but our water's already turning red. Let me close the lid on it. Keep all of that heat in there. We've got just a little bit of a tea leaf dance going on. Do you see the little tea leaves bobbing up and down? There goes one. Down it goes. This one's coming up. So we've got a little bit of a tea leaf dance going on while our tea leaves are dancing around. So cute. But, I mean, you can already see I've got some color in there. Those tea leaves are dancing, but my stars didn't dance. I was really hoping the stars would dance a little bit. My goodness. While we're waiting for that 5 minutes, I need to time it. 5 minutes, it's 8:27. So at, 8:27? No, it's not. It's 10:27. At 10:32, we need to take care of our tea. Let's see if we can find our advent calendar on my iPad here, and let's see what the little sixth graders are doing today. Oh my gosh, I don't know the name of the program, but we had so much fun. I can't tell you, Tim, I was laughing hysterically. And it doesn't have to be nonsensical things either. You can ask it questions and it will debate you on things. It's the craziest things. I know one of the things he was talking about was aliens. Do aliens exist? They went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And finally, after asking enough questions and swaying it the way that he kind of wanted to pose a question, like if you posed a question to the program one certain way and didn't get an answer, like it might say, I'm not equipped to answer that question for you, but you skewed the question a little bit more. There's like, oh, well, in that case, this. You can totally switch it to saying something you want it to say when it wouldn't say it before. All right, let's see here. Let's get our little advent calendar up for our 24 days of kindness for our little guys at the sixth grade class here. So here's our calendar. We are on day 14. It is highlighted blue, which tells us when we hit it, it's going to give us something to consider as a random act of kindness for today. Let me grab my glasses and see what these little guys have for us today. Day 14. Oh, look how somebody's very talented. This little sixth grader's very talented. So for today, the 14th, they want you to, let me see if I can get it without a glare. Make soup for a friend. Look at that. That's a really good rendition there of that chef with that cup of soup. Wow. All right, let's see what these little guys have to say. Everybody wants a warm bowl of soup when you are feeling sick, which means something nice to do for a friend in the winter is making a nice bowl of soup for them. It can be a friend or someone sick. Either would enjoy, especially in the winter. If you don't know what soup they might like, make something like chicken noodle soup. Hopefully the soup made them feel warm in the stomach and made them feel good. And you will feel good that you did something nice for a friend or someone sick, and hopefully someone will be nice to you. Oh, let's pour our water and then they're going to tell us how to make soup. Which, if somebody showed up here for me with chicken noodle soup, Mom, I'm not going to drink it, but it would be the thought that counts, right? I'm dizzy this morning again. All right, let's bring this down. Has it been 5 minutes? It hasn't even been 5 minutes. What am I doing? I'm getting ahead of myself. You made corn soup for dinner. Yossi, I made the corn potato chowder. Papa Jim loved it so much, and he took the leftovers to work today for lunch. And you know what? I think I might do, I'm not going to give too much away. I made potato corn chowder, and I was reading some of the ingredients. It's like, why would I go through the step of doing this, and this when I have this? And I did something a little different with my potato corn chowder, and it turned out really good. Papa Jim really liked it. I thought, I need to change things up. Good morning, Michelle. Good morning. Yeah, the potato corn chowder was really, really good. All right, we're going to give this just a couple more minutes, and I'm going to go back. This little sixth grader is going to tell us how to make soup. They say, let's see, is this it? Oh, this is by London and Nyla. Oh, they're so sweet. They're going to tell you how to make soup in case you didn't know. If you want to complete this act of kindness but don't know how to make soup, I would start by going to the grocery store and getting all the ingredients you want for your soup. The ingredients you need, see, it's like whatever soup you want, but here I'm going to tell you what you need. This is so cute. The ingredients you need are 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, 1 onion, diced, 1 onion diced, 2 carrots peeled and diced, celery ribs diced, 3 cloves of garlic minced, 8 cups of chicken stock, 2 bay leaves, kosher salt, freshly ground black pepper to taste, 2.5 pounds of bone-in skinless chicken breasts, 2.5 cups of white egg noodles, 2 tablespoons chopped fresh parsley leaves, 2 tablespoons chopped fresh dill. That's a lot of dill. Oh, man, that's a lot of dill. 1 tablespoon freshly squeezed lemon juice. Boil the water in a medium pot. Then slowly put in the ingredients. When everything is mixed together and when veggies aren't too hard, then you can put it in the bowl and enjoy some nice warm soup. Oh, I guess you just throw it all together. How cute. Oh my goodness. All right, so let's see. It's chicken soup. Have you guys seen, let me get this. Let's take a look at our tea and then we'll talk about this funny thing that was on the internet the other day. I thought it was so funny. It was so clever, but so smart and realistic. Here's our tea. It's been sitting there now for about 6 minutes. I'm going to swirl it around a little bit because we still have snowflakes in there. I don't know that it's ready yet, but it is a black tea. So I'm going to bring this down. It's been 6 minutes. I don't want the black tea to release the tannins if we wait too long. So I'm going to go ahead and set it here on our cup and oh my gosh. Did you guys see that? Wow. That is the strangest color tea ever. Oh my goodness. That is a strange looking tea when it came out. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add a little bit of water back to our infuser in case I like it, and I'll have a little extra. I'm going to let it steep a little bit more. I love this tea kettle, guys. I'm telling you. All right, let's see what we've got here. This tea it's pink. And because of all of the ingredients in it with the white chocolate chips and the little cookies, or not cookies, but the little candies and stuff, it's not a clear tea. You can't see through it. It's a strange color. I don't know that I would feel comfortable having company come over and putting this in front of their face without some really good explanation. So let's give it a little sip. It's still very warm. I don't know if with the peppermint, I don't know that I'm going to need to add any sweetener, if I need to add anything to it at all, but let's give it a little sip and see. Oh, that's kind of nice. By the way, I haven't eaten meat for about half a year. Neither meat nor chicken. Very good, Yossi. Cheers to you. That is good. You know, it's funny. Oh, you know what? This really leaves a really nice peppermint linger on the tongue. And when you smell it, it's very strong too. It's like strong peppermint tea. Um, we were talking about the soup, and if somebody showed up with some chicken soup, you know, we're out here in the middle of nowhere. Denise can attest for that or attest to that. And when I was going through chemotherapy, a car pulled up here one day, and it was one of those stages in my treatment where like just getting to the door was a struggle. You know, I was probably, at least halfway through my treatment, had lost a lot of weight, no hair, looking sick as a dog, right? And somebody came to the door. And when I answered the door, I said, hello. And I said, hello. And they said, is so-and-so here? So-and-so hadn't lived here in years, like 5 years. This house was empty 3 to 5 years. I said, no, they don't live here anymore. And she says, oh, goodness. She goes, we heard she wasn't feeling well, so the church made her up a big batch chicken noodle soup. She goes, now I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where she lives. Do you know where she lives? And I wasn't in the habit of telling anybody where she lived. They didn't like that. They liked their privacy. I said, no, I don't know where they live. She goes, well, what am I going to do with this soup? And she storms off and got back in her car. And I thought, obviously, I'm incredibly ill. And this household could have used some chicken noodle soup. But it went with her. It looks like a fruit soup. Doesn't it? It kind of looks like strained watermelon juice or something. It looks like a fruit soup. You're right, Yossi. But it tastes good. It smells good. I just don't know. And of course, I didn't bring any half and half. I bet you it'd be really cute with maybe some milk in it or something. I don't know. Let's see. It has a nice flavor, though. It really does. Looks like guava. Guava tea it is. Oh, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I think I enjoyed looking at the soup, looking at the tea blend more than drinking it at the moment. Look at the little snowflakes and everything, Rochelle, and little chocolate chips. Very, very cute. Yeah, it does look a little odd. What is it? Sorry, I had to go grab something to drink. Well, cheers to you. I'm glad you got something to drink. This one is called, what was it called, guys? Candy cane crush. It has chunks of candy canes in it. The little snowflake candies, white chocolate chips, and a black tea, and all kinds of stuff that I couldn't pronounce, which I didn't like the fact that it had a bunch of stuff I couldn't pronounce, but I think it's because everything that was in the little candies and stuff. It's adorbs. Isn't it adorbs? Totes adorbs. And it's not too bad on the old taste buds on the way down. That's nice. So here I was, barely able to cook, living here while, basically by myself all day while Papa Jim was at work. It would have been really nice to have had that chicken noodle soup to give to him when he came home. But yeah, she got right back in her car and decided to take the old soup back to the church instead of leaving it with somebody with cancer. Don't use a glass cup. I know, but I want you guys to be able to see what it is. Thank goodness the bunny rabbit's not sitting in today's tea, right? I mean, that would be awkward. That would be awkward if our poor bunny rabbit was sitting in the tea today. But with the chocolate chips, there is just another, again, this is a tea that's going to have a little fine layer of the oils on top. That's not a bad tasting tea. I like that. All right. So again, I stayed up way too late. Yossi, you will be glad to know. Hello. Good morning. Where to begin, Homestead? Good morning, Gwen. Good morning, little house in the big woods. You're listening while crocheting a little dress. How wonderful. Are you going to say your favorite tea of the set after you taste them all? I think we will rank our top 5 if I can remember which of my top ones are. I do know that when we were live on, was it Saturday or Sunday, guys? We had a really nice organic peppermint tea. Papa Jim liked it so much that while we were in the live, he went onto his phone and he added some more of that tea into his shopping cart online. So I know he really liked that one. So yeah, I'll let you guys know which ones are my favorite. I can tell you right now off the top of my head which one was my least favorite so far, and that was the Earl Grey. I don't know what it was that day, but I really didn't appreciate the type of Earl Grey that we had pulled out of our advent calendar. Something didn't sit right with me. I don't know if it was that the scent of it. I'm not sure, but something didn't sit right with me on that Earl Grey. I'm pulling the paper off the back of, oh, where we go? Oh, off of your pieced quilt. Very, very good. Very good. And Rochelle hates Earl Grey, so I'm not alone in that camp. There was just something about it. So, but let's see if we can find a story for today from our blog. If you're here with us for the first time, I like to find stories from my blog and share them with you while we're enjoying a spot of tea. And so I don't know which one I've got today that would be interesting. And I've got some funny ones here. I just don't know what you guys are in the mood for. I'm so glad that everybody's able to get together, say good morning to each other from across the miles. We all live all across the world, and grab something nice and warm to drink. Let's see. Just because I'm feeling a little silly and I don't even think I'll be able to read it correctly this morning, I do want to ask you guys, let's read this one because I see it here. Have you guys ever wondered about the history of names, where names come from? How did we come to some of these names? Now, I wrote this over 10 years ago before everybody went completely off the rails on naming their children. Like, I know there's somebody that named their child after the bus stop where they met. It's craziness, insanity. But have you ever worried about names? Not worried, but wondered. I know I used to work with a young lady and her maiden name was Harper. And I never thought of it. It's just her name. And she said, well, back in the day, a Harper was like the town crier because they harped on everything. They yelled and harped at everything. So that was a Harper. And so you get different names from different people way back in the day, and they just kind of form and they grow as it goes. So I did this story about kind of like the history of names. So it's called What's in a Name? And see if you can follow along, because I kind of go down several little trails with this. So what's in a name? I have always been intrigued by people's names. I've wondered what prompts parents to name their children as they do. There's history, tradition, a story behind every person's name. I have to put my glasses on. Your maiden name is Baker. Pretty self-explanatory. Yes. I was named after my grandfather, says Yossi. Which Yossi, isn't Yossi similar to like Joseph? Am I correct? That tea has loosened up whatever I've got going on in my chest. Let me take another drink. Come on, white chocolate, do your job. But I also wondered where and how we come up with some of the nicknames we have accepted in society over the years. Some nicknames so widely accepted that parents skip the formal name and just assign the nickname at birth. Why name your son John and call him Jack when you can just eliminate the additional step, name him Jack, sign the birth certificate, and then just take little Jack home? So you've skipped that step. Very close to Joseph, yes. I was named after one of my mom's high school friends. Oh, how sweet, Gwen. Okay, so let's move on. We've determined some people are just going to skip the nickname, just go right to it. But what I really want to know is how in the world these nicknames came to be in the first place. The name John is nowhere remotely close to the nickname Jack, other than the J. How is it that Richard translates into Dick and Margaret into Peggy? Do parents name their child Richard in this day and age consider that the nickname for that baby may someday be Dick? Or that Charles will end up being Chuck? I did a little research and found some answers that explain these name transformations. I always thought it was funny if you knew somebody named Charles or Charlie and you're up, you're like up in the third floor window or something, you say, "Hey, come on up, Chuck." But, it doesn't happen to me very often. So I did some research about the transformations. Let's start with Jack. It seems at some point way back in the Middle Ages, there was a need to start making some small distinctions between all of the Johns that were named out there. And I put a little picture of some medieval men here. See them there? They're all sitting around. There's 4 men sitting around talking. They're all named John. "Hey, John." "Hey, John, how you doing?" I'm good, John, thanks." "Have you met John and his friend John?" Everybody's named John. It's confusing, right? I don't know how they did it. Something had to be changed. The O in John would eventually change here and there to an A or an E. The suffix of kin, K-I-N, or N-I-N, or even cock, C-O-C-K, would be added to names to make a different meaning of the word name John. The result would be the name Jenkin or Johncock. Over time, the names would shorten a bit, and ultimately you ended up with Jack. Other names that have survived this process and may now be ended up as how we ended up with names such as Frank, which came from Francis, and Hank, that came from Henry. And this is all research I'd done and came up with this. Good morning, Major. Some nicknames have a rhyming feature with no real reason other than plugging in a new first letter. William was shortened to Will, and just for fun, we'll discard the W, tack on a B, and just because I feel like calling you Bill now. I've got a picture of somebody hugging a young intern, and it says, "But I'll only call you Bill when I'm wearing my blue dress." Oh, I was naughty. Is your name Robert Nestor Marley? Let's shorten it to Rob. But again, I like the letter B so much, and I'm so relaxed after all of those brownies that you gave me. I'm going to call you Bob now, okay? I digress. Let's get back to our history lesson. According to NameNerds.com, the Norman invasion of England in 1066 changed the language as well as the naming pool as we know it. The Normans introduced many new sounds into the language that native populations had difficulty with. The R sound was one of those, and it led to being dropped or changed in many diminutive forms of names. Barbara became Babs. Dolores became Lola, L-O-L-A, Lola. Dorothy became Dolly. Mary generated many name changes, including Molly and Polly. Margaret is a busy name, giving us Maggie, Meg, Meggie, Peg, and Peggy. Now I know where we get Peggy from Married with Children. It all started with the Norms. Now, during this time in history, I've discovered that CH was pronounced with a hard K sound, not ch, but k. Richard was pronounced Rickard, and because somebody had a hard time with their R's, they thought a D was a little more appropriate, and now we've gone from Richard to Dick. A trend came to light after all of this name changing, that trend being to add the term mine in front of names, like mine as in possessive. Again, the shortening of the name took place, and we ended up with gems like Edward becoming Mine Edward, then shortened to Ned, and then to Ed. Helen became Mine Helen, which then somehow became Nellie. Fast forward to present day, and we like to add a double E sound to any name that will stand still long enough that will allow us to nail a new ending to it. Andrew has become Andy. Anne becomes Annie. Lawrence becomes Larry. Susan becomes Susie. And heaven help us, Richard becomes Dickie. pop quiz after this little history lesson. Pop quiz. And this is in the blog. This is in my writings. Does anybody know who this is? Who's this right here? I'll tell you who that is. Yes, you guessed it. This little guy really is known as Winston Thaddeus Poocock, aka Winnie the Pooh. After a short study on name evolution, we can now see what a genius Michael Jackson was. It appears to me now, after doing this research, that Jacko had first considered naming his child Brandon. But because he had difficulties announcing his R sounds, those are enunciations that are hard for him. It's why he's always improvising while he's singing, and he's throwing around all those ee-hees because he can't say R sounds. Brandon, can't say it. He decided to call him Blandon. He shortened it to Bland, added the kin at the end, and you get Blandkin. Shorten, reverse, lather, rinse, repeat, and you get the word blanket. You add the pet double E sound at the end, and there you have it, Blanky. Jacko just skipped all of the steps, avoiding any real possibility of embarrassing and or endangering his child, and just went straight to naming him Blanky. We find ourselves as a society in the throes of another name evolution. Parents are choosing to bestow different and unique names upon their children, creating their own trend. Not so much are the days of Johns and Marys. My own grandchildren have names that they will not soon find on a keychain or on a coffee cup at a gift shop in a theme park. But this grandma has it all figured out. My granddaughter Aurora is now going to be called Rory. Azalea will be called Leah. Avalon will be called Lonnie. Anthony will be called Ant. And Chad will be pronounced with a CH as a hard K. We'll call him Cad. It's smart, right? No history or research is needed here. It's just because that's what this grandma wants to call them when she's too tired or has consumed too many of Bob's brownies. And that, my friends, that's how we get nicknames. Some of them anyway. The next time someone tells you that you don't know Jack, you just tell them that you do indeed know Jack. You guys go way back, all the way back to when he was really called John Cox Quat. So, dear friends, do you or a friend of yours have an interesting nickname? If so, I'd love to hear it. Feel free to share in the comments below. So that's my little story about nicknames, how we came up with nicknames. I know Yossi's like, what? What's going on? I can never find my name spelled correctly on keychains. I have no ice in my name. My name is Janice, so Janis. Is that how Janis Joplin is? Were you named after Janis Joplin? That is a very unique way of spelling it. My granddaughter Azalea, she'll never find anything with her name on it. Now, Aurora, she might start finding things, and Chad will, and Anthony will. But Azalea will most likely never find anything with her name on it, as neither will Avalon. Avalon is spelled very uniquely as well. You were named after Janis Joplin. Very, very interesting. So it's just kind of neat how, I've always wondered that. How come a person named John is called Jack? Where does it even come from? It really is historical. It is historical centuries ago where they would start switching things because some places could not make proper enunciations of things. You know a couple that named their daughter Bordy. I think I saw Bordy up there earlier. We had discussed earlier in other broadcasts. My name was originally, my mother was going to name me Mary Frances and call me Molly. My husband's name is Billy, and at official places, they say short for William. No, his name is Billy. See, your family, your husband's family, skipped all of the nonsense of putting William on the birth certificate, went straight for the nickname. right? Keep an eye on the fellow with the bow and arrow. He will have someone's eyes out if you're not careful. I missed something. I don't know what's going on. Oh, you're talking about way back when we were talking Winnie the Pooh? My mom named me because during pregnancy she had a dream, and in the dream she had a dark-haired boy and she was calling him Timmy, thus Timothy. Of course, this was before ultrasound. That's very sweet. I love it when there's a story behind it. For real, there was a teacher here named Richard Head. Thankfully, he goes by Richard. I'm telling you, I could go into the stories. Having worked at a school, the stories of names, I don't know, maybe that's what prompted me to write this. We had a student, and his grandmother would always come in to collect him. He lived with his grandma. His name was Michael. This is the point where Michael just really needed to remain being called Michael. Don't shorten it. His last name was Hunt, Hunt. And she would always come in. I'm here for Mike. And then she'd say their last name. It's like, oh, please call him Michael. Please call him Michael. I don't know how many times I had to stifle. There's also, we had a teacher. Oh, what was his last name? Hawk. Yeah. Oh, a local set of twins were named Captain and Sailor. That's kind of cute. What was their last name, Tiny Tim? What was their last name? Had a customer named Dusty Rhodes. Very interesting. We had a student when I was working at a high school. Last name Semans. Not joking, not kidding. That was his last name, and he really did go by his nickname for real. He didn't go by Richard. And it's like, kid, why would you do this to yourself? He loved it. He had so much notoriety. So much notoriety. You know, when you say that, Tiny Tim, it reminds me of the Three Amigos, where one of the amigos, his name was Dusty Bottoms. But I like the idea of Captain and Sailor. That's kind of cute. You don't remember their last name? I bet you they had a very unique last name. I went to school with twins. Their names were Cora and Dora. So that's, not terribly unique. I just remember it rhymed and it was kind of neat. But Cora and Dora. But some of the names when I worked at the high school, we had one family, they named their children all after automobiles, but they had to put the flair on it. Like, oh gosh, what was the one girl's name? Oh gosh, I can't remember their names now that I've said that, but they were named after automobile companies. It wasn't Mercedes, but they had names like that. Truthfully, my granddaughter Avalon is named after a Toyota Avalon. The story goes that my daughter-in-law had just discovered that she was expecting, and she had just broken the news to my son, and they were sitting outside of their apartment. And right in front of them, there was a car parked in the carport, and it was a Toyota Avalon. And then growing in the flower beds that day were iris. So they named her Avalon Iris. Customer with the last name Susie. This tea, I'm telling you. One thing that I tried to do was I tried to make sure my boys did not have names that would be anything that could be translated that way. But I also really tried to make sure that their monograms didn't spell anything that they would have to worry about. And the reason I did that was because my entire life I worried or fretted or became overly consumed with the notion of, oh my gosh, this was at the time when everybody was like getting monogram towels. I'd gone to a wedding or something and somebody had the monogram towels or something. But I realized that my monogram, if I married someone named Smith, my monogram, my initials would be ASS. And I wanted to make sure I avoided that at all costs. I didn't want my initials to be ASS. Heaven forbid, what if I named somebody named Peterson? I would be an ASP. And so I always worried about what my initials would be. And I was fortunate enough that my initials did not change at all. I was born with the last name that started with T, and I married Papa Jim, and his last name is T, and I took on that surname. And so my initials are still AST. What if I married somebody named, Kincaid? It'd be, my initials would be Ask. We used to have a sergeant here. She was a good sergeant. My mom's maiden name is Smith. I named my dog after cars. One of them was called Bentley. The others was Mercedes. And the last one was called Robin Reliant. Your initials didn't change either, Rochelle? But when my boys were named, and when I was picking out names for my children while I was carrying them, I always wanted to make sure their names did not spell anything it shouldn't spell. So for instance, one time I was picking out names for a little girl. If we were to have a little girl, I love the name Bethany. And I thought Bethany Lynn sounds so pretty, but then her initials would be BLT. And do I want to give her the initials of BLT? Well, she'll be harassed at school if somebody finds out her initials, and she'll be BLT. So kind of cool though, because my father-in-law, his initials spelled Jet, that was kind of cool when your initials spelled Jet. But I always made sure my boys didn't spell anything funny when their initials were put together. But that was just I've always thought strange things about names. I've always thought strange things about numbers. I've always been into numbers, not necessarily the science of numerology or anything, but I've always been intrigued with numbers. He spelled it and said, yes, I survived school. His last name being Suzia, but everybody called him Susie. So his great-grandfather changed it. I could only think if he was in the military. Susie on a uniform, right? Hello, how do you do? My name is Sue. I went to school with a boy named Tracy, and he had a lot of harassment for being named Tracy. But there was one little boy in the 3rd grade. I don't know where he was from, but his name was Ishmael. And that poor kid, he really took a lot of ribbing. The kids would call him fish meal, things like that. And, it's sad because I think, my granddaughter is named for my mother's middle name. My mother had a very unique name. Oh, it was very unique. I never understood why people have middle names, right? That would be a good thing to research, where we came in with middle names. Now, I will tell you, now I know this is true of the Mormon religion because I had a lot of students from our Mormon community when I worked at the school. The boys, I think, do the boys get it too? I know for sure the girls. The middle name for the girls is always the mother's maiden name. So if I were to have had a daughter, if I were a Mormon, if I named my daughter Mary, her name would be Mary Tuxon Thompson, because then the Tuxon is her middle name, and that helps you keep track of lineage. So the mother's maiden name of that child, and it really does help with lineage. So they were kind of smart in that. A lot of cultures don't have middle names. Your husband's name is Renee. Now, is it Renee or Renee? Because I've heard it both ways. My neighbor named her son Lucas. She said that's because nothing bad would rhyme with that. And I started laughing. Sure, nothing's going to rhyme with Lucas. Ishmael is a Muslim name. And, I could see that. I remember just based on his physical characteristics, that totally makes sense to me. He was a very nice boy. I used to walk home from school with him. But I don't know. We developed a friendship, but then it almost became like I would walk home with him because I knew he wasn't safe walking home by himself. So we kind of formed a little group to make sure that he was okay. My husband's family takes mother's maiden name for the middle name. Angel numbers. I added my maiden name as Sid's second middle name because I never changed my name legally. So I still have my maiden name on my passport. That way, when she's traveling, it would be both of our names. See, there's sense in that. My mother's name was Artis, Ardyce, which people always thought her name was artist, like an artist that paints. But her name was Artis Azalea. And Azalea is spelled like Azalea the flower, but not pronounced like Azalea the flower. But it was Artis Azalea. And When my granddaughter was born and they named her Azalea Marie, that was the middle names of each of the respective grandmothers that way. And I thought, oh, I know people will have a hard time spelling it, but hopefully she won't have problems in school. They call her Ass, A-Z-Z, Ass. And it bothers her. She's really at that tender age where she's feeling picked on. But now she just kind of changed. She gave herself her own nickname. She calls herself Azzy, A-Z-Z-Y. And the kids are starting now to come around to saying Azzy, and they're not teasing her so much. You're quite all right. You're quite all right, little house. Your mom's name is Dorian. Ooh, that's a pretty name too. As unique as my mother's name was, I wish I would have had video footage of this, but my mind wasn't in the right place at the time. I did take a picture. Somewhere I have a picture. When you're in the hospital and they've got the whiteboard at the foot of the bed and they write down things about you. Well, when my mother was in the local hospital for a while, let me take another sip. There was a shift change at the hospital, and the nurses would come in and they would write their names. So you knew what the names were of the ladies caring for your mother or the nurses. And they would always have, the doctor on there and everything. Well, at this one particular time, my mother's two nurses, and it was written on the board, one nurse was named Angel and the other nurse was named Heaven. And I thought it was so neat that my mother was being cared for by Angel and Heaven. And I just loved that. But they had to be particularly careful caring for my mother and making sure that her meds were correct when they had to give her medication, because in the very next room was another woman named Ardyce, spelled the exact same way, Ardyce. And they had the same date of birth, Valentine's Day. And so they had to be very careful when they read the medications to make sure that the correct Ardyce with the same date of birth got the correct medication. I mean, how often does that happen? John? Sure. Mary? Absolutely. But Ardyce next door in a little Midwest hospital with the same date of birth? It was crazy. My daughter's class is so diverse, I can't pronounce half the names in her class. I know. Now, you get some very unique names. And I know that I ran into some problems with some parents who were very upset that I couldn't pronounce the names properly. But it was a joke at our school one time because, oh God, we had somebody in student records always refer to a student as Zoe. And we all just, it just kind of became a joke, because if it was J-O-E, you would call the name Joe. But Z-O-E was Zoe. And the mother used to get so upset when she would speak to this person in student records because it was Zoe, not Zoe. But there's always the story about the twins, Orange and Limon. And Orange was O-R-A-N-G-E, orange. And Limon was L-I-M-O or L-E-M-O-N for lemon. So Orange and Limon. And then there's the joke about the woman who has a set of twins. She loses consciousness, and when she wakes up, she learns that her brother had named her children, and she was upset that he had named her children, but he went ahead and took care of everything for her while she was unconscious. And she was very happy to learn that she had had a little girl, and Denise is here in the chat, and he named the little girl Denise. And she goes, well, that's a lovely name. I like that. She goes, what did he name the little boy? He goes, he named it DeNephew. So there was Denise and DeNephew. My dad wanted my middle to be Edward, so T-E-P, would honor the ambulance driver that helped deliver me. Oh, how interesting. Mr. Teppenpaw. Mom wasn't having it. Sent Dad home to get something, and she went and named me Lynn. Isn't it funny how back then you could distract the dad and go do something, and then you completed the birth certificate? I remember I was so thankful. Because I was very young when I had my children. And I knew what I wanted to name our first child because I named him after his father. And then the second one, I decided I wanted all of our boys to their names to start with J. And so the second boy I chose Michael, and Joshua, and then the middle name Michael. I just liked the way it sounded, Joshua Michael. I really liked it. All of my boys have biblical names, and I had delivered him. I was in the hospital, and the clerk came up to help me complete everything for the birth certificate, and she wrote down Joshua for me, and then she asked what the middle name would be, and I said Michael, and she goes, "How do you spell it?" And I just looked at her. In my mind, I had it spelled wrong. Thankfully, she knew how to spell Michael, and she spelled it correctly on his birth certificate, because he probably would be Joshua Michelle if I had not had a little bit of intervention from her. But for the longest time, my little Azalea was almost named something else, my little granddaughter. And they had come up with a name that they just loved for her. And I wanted to be careful how I told them I didn't think it was a wise choice, and to really give it some thought. I remember when I was pregnant with my first child, I really wanted to name my first child Amanda, and then give the middle name as Lynn. I thought it was very pretty. Amanda Lynn. And then my mother-in-law laughed at me one day, and I said, "What?" She goes, "Say it fast." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "A mandolin. It's a little guitar. A mandolin. You're naming her after a little musical instrument." She goes, "You need to come up with something better." And I hadn't thought of that. But then later on, because I didn't have a girl anyways, I would have changed it. But we do have someone who named their child Brooke with the middle name Lynn. And so when you say it fast enough, it's Brooklyn. And maybe they were fine with that. But my little granddaughter, my son and daughter-in-law, they love going to the ocean. When we lived in Southern California, they would go fishing at the ocean every weekend. They loved it. They loved to go spend their day at the beach. They were going to name their daughter Ocean, which is a beautiful name. There's nothing wrong with that. But they had chosen the middle name Breeze because, you go, you sit on the ocean, and you get the lovely breeze in the afternoon. Ocean Breeze. They really wanted to name her Ocean Breeze. And I remember how I felt when my mother-in-law kind of laughed at me when I had the name Amanda Lynn picked out. And I didn't want to make them feel that I was making fun of them or their choice, but I wanted them to consider it. So I had to tell my daughter-in-law, I said, "Will you just do me a favor? Will you just look up, just type in, do a search for Ocean Breeze and see what you get?" And they did. And they said, "Yeah, we're changing the baby's name. We will not be naming the baby Ocean Breeze." Some of you will understand. Your son wanted to name your son Jesus or Jesus, because I've known a Jesus a time or two in my time. Rochelle Michelle. It wouldn't have been a bad misspell, Rochelle Michelle. You're quite all right, Gwen. I hope their last name was Breeze. See? It would have been Ocean Breeze, but they went with Azalea Marie instead. And I love the way Azalea Marie sounds. I think that sounds lovely. So we discussed before, my middle name is Sue. And, I'm reading Anne with an E right now. And I'm reading Anne of Green Gables, and Anne always insists that she has an E at the end of her name because it's more romantical instead of just plain old Anne. I remember feeling that way when I was probably around 12. I changed my middle name to Suzanne because I thought Alicia Suzanne sounds so much more romantical than just plain old Alicia Sue. And I mean, I've got stuff back from when I was in school where I've signed it Alicia Suzanne. And then, I asked my mom where I got my middle name from, and I was named after a friend of hers who had helped her, through a very dark time in her life. And I said, "Well, if you had to name me Sue, why didn't you name me like after Sioux City? My mother was born in Sioux City. Why don't you make it Sue, Sioux?" And I don't know, I didn't get anything unique out of that deal. They joked if they had a son, they'd name him Seth. Pool. Seth Pool. It's funny. My son, my last son's name is Justin, and he has a friend named Justin, and they call him Just Insane, or just in case, or just in time for dinner. There's so many things you can do with names as long as you're not hurting anybody's feelings. My dad never would say my full name. He'd never say Alicia. He'd always just call me Alicia. And I don't know why he wouldn't say the whole thing, but I can remember being in middle school and having the boys follow behind, barking at me like a dog. Hey, where's your dog? There's that dog. She needs to be put on a leash, and they would make fun of me all the time. So I think all of us kind of go through stages where we can't help but be teased because of our name for one reason or another. I tease my own name now. I make fun of my own name because my last name doesn't have a P in it. So when I introduce myself to people, or if I have to tell them my last name and they're going to write it down, I just tell them it's the dry spelling. And they look at me, they're like, what? I said, it's dry. There's no P in it. And then they get a little chuckle out of it. It's the dry spelling. There's no P in my name. But the best one was when I would always go back to the same obstetrician, pregnant again. I'm here for baby number whatever. And the ladies would write something. I'd say, my husband is P-less. And they were like, what? My husband, he's P-less. And they're like, then why are you here? There's no P in his last name. And they're like, oh, okay. I called all of my chicken. Oh, I thought you said chickens. Major. I called all of my children. Shut up. And no, we're not there. We're not there yet. Ask your mom, which soon became no, but ask your mom. By the way, the reason that an ambulance was needed at my birth, which is unique enough already from what we've heard, Dad had to take a bath and shave first. They lived 4/10 of a mile from the hospital. Your dad had to look presentable to celebrate your occasion of arrival. How sweet. But I'm sure your mother was just in dire straits. I bet you she was really, really upset that you guys had to have an ambulance show up. Oh, I very rarely call my daughter Amanda. It's Manda. Do you remember the Barry Manilow song, Mandy? That's why I wanted to name my daughter Amanda, was Mandy. I thought it was so pretty. I used to love to just sit and play the piano and sing that song. Ah, yes. Rochelle wants to know, Tim, your dad had to shower and shave before meeting all them hot nurses. You know about them nurses, right? My mother was a nurse. My mother was a nurse. My mother was the most innocent thing you'd ever meet. And her first husband, whose name was Richard, hello, and guess what his nickname was? His grandmother did not like my mother because she was a nurse, and all nurses were hussies. She was not afraid to tell my mother what she thought of her. But my mother was so innocent. I'll tell you a story my mom used to love to tell. I'll probably get in trouble, but I'll try to be careful. She was so innocent. She really was so innocent. My mom was a nurse, and she was caring for an elderly patient, an elderly man. Yeah, why not Rick? I know, right? Why? I love it when you have to go into a shopping center and it's Dick's Sporting Goods. Why can't it be Rick's? What's going on? But at the time, Richard was a perfectly acceptable name. It's just like, look at our friends Karen. I mean, look at how Karen has been sullied. The name Karen is now attributed to something in a negative tone. But anyways, back to my mother, the nurse, who was completely innocent. My mother was caring for an old gentleman, and she had to help the gentleman get out of bed and transition to a wheelchair. She got the gentleman to sit up in his bed and rotate his legs around. And as she's rotating his legs around, he's just howling like a dog. Ow! She's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he was complaining about something that was hurting. Oh, ow, my ow. She's like, she couldn't understand it because what he was complaining about hurting was not why he was there. She wrote in his chart and called the doctor. She goes, I'm really worried about this patient. And they're like, what's wrong? She goes, well, I transitioned him out of the bed, and with every move I made, he kept screaming, my bowels, my bowels. He wasn't saying bowels. She had him pinched up in a most uncomfortable way. oh, my, she thought he was saying bowels and not what he was saying. My mother didn't know that was a slang term for what she was really pinching and dragging across the side of the bed. And so she only knew the medical term, the correct term. And so they had to explain to my mother what he was really complaining about and how you need to take into consideration the male anatomy and the tenderness of dragging that poor man across the mattress as he's screaming. And she said, it's not his bowels, honey. It's not his bowels. And my mother, she would talk about that story for the longest time because she just had she didn't know. And she told another story about when she was first married to Richard. When she was first married to Dick, he wore a sweater to a Christmas dinner one time. There really was a girl on my high school that had the last name Easley, first name Mona. Oh no, Mona Easley. Unfortunately, she resembled that. My favorite joke is that one year for Christmas, I asked for a sweater. I didn't get a sweater, but I did get a moaner. Anyways, my mother's first husband for the family Christmas, which my mother was an only child, so it was just my mother and her parents. And he wore a sweater, and the sweater had pheasants on it. And he explained to my mother on the drive up, because I really hope that your mother likes my sweater that I chose for our family dinner tonight. She's like, why? He goes, well, it has these fuzzy nuts all over it. And she's like, what? He goes, fuzzy nuts. And she goes, is that what those birds are called? She didn't know. He goes, yeah, they're fuzzy nuts. And so my mom went around all Christmas dinner. What do you think of Dick's fuzzy nuts? Mom, did you notice that Dick wore his fuzzy nuts for you? And everybody was just in uproarious laughter. And my mother's like, what's going on? And finally, I guess her father took her aside and goes, they're called pheasants, not fuzzy nuts. They just had a wonderful, wonderful time making fun of her for that. My brother-in-law's grandma is the mother of 14 kids, and her name was Imogene Poole. Oh my goodness. There are some funny names out there. I have to be careful. There are some families in this local area that every time, I'm going to say it. I don't care. I'm going to say it. Denise may know what I'm talking about. There's a family here in this area, and they used to have somebody, I think the first name was Justin, but they were a reporter on the local radio station. And every time I would listen to them, I always thought that they had some form of a malady or something, because his name was Justinitis. And so their last name's Itis, I-T-E-S. And it's like they've got a problem they're dealing with, like tonsillitis or appendicitis. They're Justinitis. And I always laugh when I hear that. My mama's name was Imogene. There was gene pools. Imogene Poole. That's funny. One of my husband's great uncles was named Gene Poole. That's clever. That is clever. That's funny. Oh my goodness. So all of my boys ended up having pretty decent names. I don't think I harmed any of them in choosing their names for them. So I think we did okay. Didn't name them after a bus stop. Didn't name them Blanky. But I tell you what, next time, as an adult, I do my best to not laugh at people's names unless it's itis, because I just can't get over that. But it's been fun talking to you about names. Now you guys know a little bit of history about how we got nicknames. It really was something that I historically looked up. It all started with the Normans. That's where it all started. It's where we got Peg Bundy. So Denise knows what I'm talking about. And no offense if they're close personal friends, Denise. But anyways, all right, guys. I'm a Jane, not Emma Jane. I'm a Jane. Gotcha. Jim's grandmother, her first name is Mary, but her middle name is Ione, I-O-N-E. And we used to tease her all the time saying, she was a very proud woman, proud of her money, always had her hair done up, always looked nice, had Jim's brother drive her around in a black Lincoln Continental like he was her chauffeur, and she lived very well. And so they used to call her Mary, I own everything. And so I'm glad that we didn't have to pass down any of the I owns, stuff like that. So, but anyways, guys, it's been fun today. I've enjoyed our tea. I love the little snowflakes, candy cane crush. I don't know that it's one of my favorites, but it was palatable. I've almost finished the first cup. I've got another cup steeping. I might have a cup when I come back in from feeding the chickens, which I haven't done yet because I slept in this morning. But thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget, if you're making some soup, make some extra for a friend. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for the 15th. Oh, tomorrow's Jim's brother's birthday. That's fun. But I also got good news from his little brother that we visited recently. Just got his scan back. He's battling bladder cancer for the 3rd time. Just got the results from his recent scan. No cancer. No cancer is evident at all. So we're very happy for him for that. Both of my kids have the same initials. Didn't do that on purpose. Yes. I don't think any of my kids have the same initials. There's JP, JM, JA, and JD. Yeah, nobody has the same initials. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Hit the thumb on the way out. 12 o'clock. The latest chapter of Anne of Green Gables will be dropping. I changed up the thumbnail on that so it doesn't have the chicken on there anymore. It was confusing people, so I changed that out. And I will be doing some more episodes for you guys soon on that. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 10:15 a.m. And I want you guys to have a blessed day. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. End of broadcast.